let's just start. So thank you first for inviting me to this lecture. And hopefully next year, if everything going well, so hopefully we can see in person, because although the carbon footprint is very low, but it's nothing, can change face-to-face conversations and having coffee together and walk on the street together. Because for me, I think if we are talking about conservations or architecture or even urbanism, the text, the story is on the ground, not in the library. So that's why when we are talking about mapping and managing change and HUL, it's not about mechanism, but it's about the real community and the real city. Okay, so I will start with this highlighting several important definitions. So for me, heritage is more like inheritance. If we talk about heritage, we tend to think about noun, about the form, about the materiality. It's about the city. But if we say about inheritance, this is more the intangible aspect of heritage. Means that what we have today actually is not belong to us. What we have today, what we enjoy today, nature and culture, was given by the past generations to us. And we have no right to abuse it, to destroy it, or to consume it, so nothing left for the next generations. Because we have to inherit what we receive from the past, use it now, keep it, restore it, maintain it, so we can pass it to the next generations, intact, in a good conditions. So I think this is the basic principles that we need to remember, and why we need to do so. This is just a very general definitions of heritage from UNESCO, from e-commerce, right? Heritage is everything, a combinations of the productions of man, everything. This is not just our productions, but it's the productions of the past generations that is passing to the future generations. And second, most important things, I just highlighted in red. We are talking about reality. We are not talking about the fake heritage or created heritage, but something that is real on the ground. Cultural reality, economic reality, social reality, environmental reality. And these realities stays or possessed by the community. And this reality should be passed on to the next generation. So we will not pass on something that is fake. That is something that we created for tourism. We are not passing some like Mickey Mouse and Universal Studio and label it as heritage, because it's not heritage, it's entertainment. So if you really want to pass to the future, then we have to stick to the truth. So this is the principles. Now, why we need to conserve? The definition of conservation has changed since many years ago. So the agreement now, conservation is a management of change. But I add something, it's not just management of change only, but it's a management of permanence and change. It means that it's not freezing the heritage of the past. It's not like museum. So you have artifacts and we keep the artifacts forever in the museums. No. It's not like tiger and then we shot that tiger, we kill the tiger, and when we put something inside that tiger, we preserve it and put the tiger inside my living room. So the tiger will stay for another 100 years. It's not how conservations. Conservations is to keep the tiger to fall in love with another tiger so they can produce many baby tigers in the correct habitat so they can continue to produce more tigers for the future. So this is the management of change. So it's a totally different from preserving the artifacts. But we conserve life. We conserve something as living heritage, not death artifacts. All right. So this is the principles of the conservations of management change. So we, in order to be able to do that, then we need to have something that we will talk to this afternoon. There's a lot of news like this. In Egypt, for example, in newspaper, there's a project. The government want to build an infrastructure. You need to do a street widening. You need to create interest along the Chao Phraya River in Bangkok, for example, to create broad walk along the river. But without realizing that, probably the decision maker, the planners, is destroying the significance of the riverbank along Chao Phraya in Bangkok, for example, because the ferry, the harbors, the jetties from number 0, number 1, number 2, number 5 is already there forever. So it's not meant like Boat Quay or Clarke Quay in Singapore. So the waterfront of the Chao Phraya River or the riverines in Thonburi areas is always like that since the very beginning. So this is called the authenticity. So any infrastructural project that superimpose on top of that without considering the existing or the enduring morphological or typological form of that place is basically destroying heritage. So the cultural mapping is a very important tool or methodology to identify the community's strength and resources. And this is also the tool or process that can help the communities move into planning and implementation phase. So cultural mapping is not done by ourselves. We go to the field without any agenda. We don't want to edit anything first. So cultural mapping is basically reading, listening, the voices from the ground, recording whatever we find, that we see, typology, morphology, sociology, the political discussions, the food, culinaries, everything. So we map everything, tangible cultural heritage, like movable cultural heritage, like painting, sculpture, coin, manuscript, whatever. Immovable cultural heritage, monument, archaeological site, human settlement, architecture, underwater cultural heritage, shipwreck, underwater ruins and cities, and intangible cultural heritage, oral traditions, performing arts, ritual, lifestyle, everything. And we have a lot of methodology to do that nowadays. We have technology, we have big data, we have digital equipments. We can do whatever we want. We can record, we can put together all these informations into a nice graphic, into a series of information, very structured, layered. So this is the so-called the comprehensive cultural mapping in order to be able to understand comprehensively about your subject matter. So basically, it's just like if you are a medical doctor, and the city or the object that we want to, or subject matter that we want to talk about is like a human body. So before you do any operations, any interventions to your body, you need to have a full information on data. For example, like X-ray, MRI, blood test. You need to check also some psychological things. You have to interview about the previous history of the family, about the DNA and so on. So the more informations that you get, the more robust is the planning that you want to do. So this is basically the so-called the cultural mapping. Why we need to do cultural mapping? First, because our cultural environment become unreadable due to urban development, due to the political process, due to natural disaster, population movement, and other factors. Therefore, we need to record. Because the relationship between intangible cultural practice and physical space is lost, we can no longer remember the meaning of our heritage. So that's why we need the scientific methods. We need to do an empirical study, interpretations, analytical methods to put together into a systematic knowledge system. And because we need to regain and retain our cultural memory across generations. So this is the basic reason to do that. And what is the map? Well, map consists of two parts. One is the data recording, the data that we captured, and then the communications through visualizations, how we visualize that, so that data can be easily understood by different party, by different stakeholders, by ordinary people, and up to the intellectuals or academics, and even the politicians. So it's equally important. So the data is the content, and the visualizations is how we present it to the public. The methods can be very simple or very sophisticated. You can use manual, digital, or hybrid. You can use technology like data gathering through big data, through coding. You can do a very simple sketching by hand, like through interview, a combination of all this. By one-to-one interview or site observations, or just use statistic. Visualizations can be very simple or sophisticated. So everybody can do this, even primary school kids, even secondary school children or students can do this. If you are PhD students or a master students, of course, you have more capability to do this, right? But basically, it can be done by anybody. So what should be mapped? All attributes, by both tangible and intangible. Place where the movable and immovable cultural objects are found. So it's very important. So it's not just mapping something on the cloud or ideas, but you have to link that informations, that significance to the ground, to the place. Place where cultural practices took place, like ritual and secular, like the celebrations, like processions. Where is the place? If it's a trail, where is the trail locations on the ground? You have to draw that on the ground. The physical features like landscape, historical sites, structure, monument, dwelling, shops, right? The architects and planning students know how to do this. All the material culture, artifacts, craft, tool, products, food. For example, if you say like about silk, for example, it's not just about the silk itself, the significance of the product, but where is the silk is being produced? Where is the raw materials came from? Where is the buyer came from? Where is the processing is carried out? Where is the motifs that influence the ornaments of or the illustrations or the drawings of the silks came from? So the map can be a very local, can be regional, can be international. But you have to draw all these relationships that link to that particular craft into the ground. Same also with language, ritual, festivals, even meanings, history, folktales, local knowledge, even the urban legends. Talking about ghosts, I know in Thailand there's a lot of ghost stories, and how this ghost is placed. Is it related to a certain tree? Is it related to the certain mountain or hills? Is the mountain is considered as sacred, or the graveyard? So where is the boundaries? So translate all this into map. And how to do? You only have these very simple tools. Is your own brain. Left brain and right brain. It means use or not only your intellectual, but also your emotional. When you ask questions, ask these two sides. Don't just ask about history, but also ask about memory. Yeah, history is rational, memory is emotional. Don't look into the real physical condition of today, but also look into how much that place or that object or that ritual is being loved or appreciated by people. Don't only look into the future, the hope or the meaning, universal meaning of your objects, but also ask about the other side, about the happiness, whether people feel happy and feel like optimism. So you combine these intangible and tangible, emotional and rational aspect in the mapping process. And then take notes. Use whatever equipment that you have, digital or manual or analog. So the step is very simple. Number one, do the archival research. Dig all the libraries, old photos, newspaper, film, postcard, maps, books, articles, whatever. Now we have a digital tool, so digitize everything, because it's very easy to keep all this digital in a very compact manner and for exchange. So set up a cloud. Somewhere, or you can use a software like Evernote, for example, a multi-platform. So you have a desktop, you have a laptop, you have Macintosh, you have Windows, you work in Chinese operating system or Japanese operating system and English operating system, no problems, but find something that can combine all together into one repository. Step 2, do on-site observations. Go there. Don't just believe in pictures or in news. Sketching, photographing, drawing. Do the spatial plan analysis, map layerings from past to present. So, and then coordinate the scale of the map so you can see the transformations or the morphological transformation of circulations or functions of the topography of reclamations and so on, or deforestations, right? So do this analysis of map layering, and then do the synchronic or chronological and diachronic reading according to different scale levels. Do audiovisual recording, photography, videography, sound, interviews, a member of the community and expert, not just the expert, but also the member of a community. And then do statistical analysis, measuring, counting, sampling. Do evaluation of significance and vulnerability of threat. This is very important. Not just talking or thinking or summarizing the significance of the object and place, but most importantly is to understand the vulnerability or threats. So you can use SWOT analysis, for example, to identify all these 4 different strength, opportunity, threat, and weaknesses. Yeah. And then do overall layering and connections, and then do the planning, design, and production of deliverables, the map itself. So these 10 steps is the basic steps that we can teach this to primary school kids, we can teach this to students, university, we can teach this to the expert, we can teach this to the government officers to do the same steps, but with the different levels of complexity. I just want to give you one example of what I've given to my students. Look into this area of, say, there are several old maps, 1640, 1822, 1941. And that circle is the areas that they have to study to do the mapping. Of course, if you have time, you have to do the entire nation or the entire map or the entire city. But because this is just for school exercise, then we can limit into a small area within that circle. So as you can see, these 3 maps actually representing different scale and different details of the map. Doesn't really matter, but you coordinate the scale, scan it. You can use Photoshop. You can use SketchUp. You can use whatever software to coordinate all these things. If you have more knowledge about mapping, you are geodesic students, or you can use GPS or GIS map. That's also fine. And look into the existing in every year, in every level, if possible, look into a different aspect of the maps. For example, the same maps talking about, say, on the left, upper left, is the land status, the ownership status, and the plot divisions of the land. The right maps is talking about the built environment or the circulations. And then another maps at the bottom is the master plan. So you collect whatever maps from the same period of time, same years or same period in every different years. But of course, the older map that you have, the information is less. But it doesn't really matter. So you have the layers of map, like a 3-dimensional layers, but there'll be more information from the from the present time and recent past, but not so much on the distant past. That is perfectly okay. And then start to do pinning. So the cheapest method is use Google My Map because it's free and it's easy to handle. So you just create Google My Map, you use Google account, and then start to put the pin. And on that pin, you can link. You can type, you can put pictures, you can put links to the cloud, your data collections. So every pin is representing the content that you collected from different sources, photo, videos, records, old pictures, interviews, and so on, and put it together in the cloud and link that cloud into that particular pin. And then later, during the analysis, you can change the color of the pin. So this can be the very good way to collect data and relate the data and the narrative into a perfect, exact locations on the ground. Yeah, so you can populate the map into this, and it's done. Can be a group works, can be a student's work, can be work together with local community, ask the local community also to learn how to do this pinning, give them access to the Google Map, My Map, and so on. So you can basically can do this with anybody, and the more information that you have is the better. And the information, remember, is not just about the present day, but also informations about the past, whatever informations, but it's combined together in one pin. So every pin has a different colors and has different content. And once you finish this pinning, you can sit together and start to classify and use SWOT analysis. For example, first we talk about significance. So for most significance, turn the pin into red. For not so significance, for international or global significance is red. For national or regional significance is yellow. For local community significance, which is less, can be green. For the rest, it's just original color or white or whatever, or black. And how to decide whether this should be red or this should be yellow or should be green. This is the most important part of the mapping, is the conversations. So you must not just do it based on your own knowledge, but based on the iterations, based on the conversations with local community, with the stakeholders. So you can bring this into a city hall, or you create a kind of city hall meeting with the different stakeholders, and then start to tell everyone about, okay, so we found this information within this pin. What do you think? This is red, yellow, or green? And then you can have a debate. So the decisions could be taken through majority, could be, and then majority say, okay, this is red, then it may be red. And then later you can do a scientific research to substantiate that this can be red. I mean, this has a global significance and has a potential to be highlighted or submitted as part of UNESCO World Heritage Site, for example. But while for the yellow, for example, yellow and red, very important on the national level, may not be too important for international level, but on the national level, this has to be pushed into the so-called the national monuments or national heritage status. So the result of this data is really become your tools to put up the agenda, to protect through legal aspect and so on, based on the evidence, based on the data that's collected from the local people by all stakeholders. So the more comprehensive your data, the more representative and believable your data is, the more truth in it. And the data, so yeah, you can even take Instagram hashtag, you can take a Facebook hashtag, you know, it can be check-in, whatever. And this is part of this engagement of the youth, because young people, maybe this doesn't have old photos anymore, but they indicate the significance of a place through this social media as well. And this is analysis and synthesis. Identify all of the main layers of the site: the physical, sociological, and ideological. These three. From the distant past, recent past, to the present. It can be about landscape or circulation and build form. This is the physical. The sociological can be about community, economy, and administrative. The ideology could be belief, memory, and love. Okay, so feel free to define what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 9, whatever. So this is a way you start to sort out and to put up a kind of case through your analysis. And then reconstruction of chronological developments and changes of the study area from distant past, recent past to present, of all the above aspects and components, to identify the persistence and changes. Well, I propose this based on the, say, if you want to have a theoretical book supporting this, is from the Aldo Rossi, The Architecture of the City. Yeah, he's talking about this persistence and change, about the morphology of the city. So there's a lot of theoretical base that support this idea. And then identification and evaluation of significant moments, elements, and narratives of the study area across historical timeline, and this physical anchor significance, signifiers, or attributes, if we use the terms from UNESCO, in specific space and place. And then do the analysis of the vulnerabilities of the study site, and the source of the vulnerabilities could be climate change, could be political conflicts, could be an economic pressure, and so on. And refer to UNESCO recommendation on HUL and e-commerce guidelines on heritage impact assessment. Okay, so this is to help you to do the analytical and synthesis in this methodology. So the result of the cultural mapping is translated into policy. And the policy could be a master plan, it could be the implementation plan, or the intervention plan. So I put a diagram on the right, the red, and then the brown and the yellow is the layers of the present situations, recent past and distant past historical layers that is identified through the cultural mapping with the different colors, not just red, but it could be yellow, could be blue, could be green, or whatever, depends on your classifications. And then you can layer the so-called the future development planning, for example, the official master plan from the government. And then you can start to see the conflict between the master plan. If the master plan is done without considering the historical past, then there will be a lot of conflict. For example, a plan for a shopping mall sits on a red pin or red area. You see, because red area have an international potentials to be global heritage or world heritage, but why the government plan a shopping center there, or bus terminal, or even a cement factory, right? So because of this conflict, then you can do the so-called the HIA, the Heritage Impact Assessment. So whatever plan is supposed to be used on that site, or implemented site, have to go into at least HIA and one this environmental impact assessment. So you have AIA, environmental impact assessment, and heritage impact assessments as the tools, legal tools, to manage change and permanence. To manage that, to ensure that the historical significance of a place, either is a global significance, regional significance, or national significance and communal significance, is not destroyed by uninformed planning principles. So therefore, the so-called the HUL, historic global landscape, should become a law or legal product and adopted by the city and also by the country, by the state. And the mechanism like HIA, Heritage Impact Assessment, Environmental Impact Assessment, should be part of the evaluation tool, legal and formal, that have to be carried out by everyone. If someone, investor, developer, or whoever, even the government, do not follow these principles, then we can put a class actions. We can drag them into the court. And that's how we can make a very strong heritage protection system. So the cultural mapping can stay as, as innocent as possible, just as an academic exercise, but it has a very big and strong and important potential to become a law and regulations and planning and conservation instruments. Okay, so this is the principles. So that's why the SUL, the United Nations, UNESCO, especially in 2011, proposed that all the member states adopted this one, or this as part of the legal management tools. Started from the academic and intellectual discourse, especially by Ron van Oers and Francisco Bandarin, people in the e-commerce. But finally, this adopted by SUL. And then you see this morning, you hear about the lecture about Ballarat, city of Ballarat. This is one good example how the SUL is already implemented as a legal instrument, as a planning instrument in the city. So can you take Ballarat as one of the case study that you can implement it in Chiang Mai, you can implement this in Bangkok, you can do that in Songkhla, in different city, in Yunnan, in different provinces, and all over the place. And the one who can push this is university. Yeah, because you have the capacity to train the government officers, to train, to give workshops to the member of parliaments who should make this a law. You can train the governor and the staff. You can talk to the royal property or crown properties, make them understand about the significance. You can talk to the local activists as well, so they can defend and become part and take the ownerships of the mapping. So I don't want to do the details, you can read by yourself on this, but I just want to highlight that this HUL is recommended that all member states, including Thailand, and relevant local authorities identify within their specific context the critical steps to implement the HUL, including the following step. Number one, do the comprehensive survey and mapping of city, natural, cultural, and human resources. We already talked about that just now. It's about cultural mapping and how to do that. Second is when we change that color from blue into red or from into yellow, to reach consensus using participatory planning and stakeholder consultations on what values to protect for transmission for future generations, and to determine the attributes that carry these values. This has to be decided democratically, because if this consensus is not reached, but only one party propose or impose their will, whether it's a minister of tourism, whether it's a crown property, or it is a local community, and there is no consensus, it's no good. Why? Because it's not settled yet. It's not agreed yet. You're still in dispute, like a family. You're still in dispute about your own heritage. So you cannot ensure that heritage will be intact when you pass it on to the next generations. So therefore, you have to have a dialogue, conversations, consensus. So HUL process is a good time, a good way to build up the democratic process in decision making. It's a participatory to empower the weakest people that doesn't have voice. Give them voice to vote that this site should be the place. And then to assess vulnerability of this attribute to social economic stresses and impacts of climate change. Because you need to understand what is, okay, we agree to protect this, but what is the pressure? The pressure is probably ownerships. The land is owned by private. So the private can do anything. So this could be considered as weaknesses, as threats. So how to manage that? But just list the vulnerability place. And then to integrate urban heritage values and vulnerability status into a wider framework of city development, which shall provide indication of areas of heritage sensitivity that require careful attention of planning, design, and implementation. So here, the HIA, the heritage impact assessment is become necessary. And then to prioritize action for conservation and development, and then to establish appropriate partnership and local management framework for finance, for political agreement, and so on. So this helps to actually is to make the heritage law and planning law stronger in every country, and even on the national level and on the city level. So I do not talk much about the Ballarat, but you can go to this interesting map, especially the visualizing Ballarat. But the interesting story about this is the initiative came not from the government, but the initiative came from some young civil service. One of them is Susan Fayad. And this Susan Fayad and his gang and her gang actually work together with local universities, local activists to start the mapping. And slowly they managed to convince the city of Ballarat to adopt this into the planning mechanism. But if you look into the address of the website, is www.visualizingballarat or hulballarat.org.au, not gov, not government. So it's remained as a middle platform. So by setting up this database on the common ground, the government is able to tap into that, and the community can also contribute to that. So I think it's important to set up very clearly the status of HUL. The HUL should be a common ground, a middle ground, that everybody can come together. Don't put the HUL on the government hand, because the government can easily abuse it or use it for the political purpose. And sometimes the government work together with the civil servant, with the investments, with the developers, and these collaborations with the developers and government can easily abuse the so-called the significance of a place. Don't just only give this to the local people or NGOs, because they are powerless, because they don't have legal status. So whatever they put, they can be easily ignored by the state or even by the developers or private sectors. But by following the Ballarat examples, put the HUL mechanism as a middle ground that accepted by everyone, it's become very democratic. And because it's very democratic, then the management can be more effective to maintain the developments and also to protect the heritage of the place. Okay, so this is one of very good examples of how they presented the content and how they build up activities of this content. So after that, then of course you need this so-called the conservation management plan, consists of HUL, HIA, and then AIA, environmental impact assessment, among others, are some important tools for heritage conservation management plan. So you need to have this mechanism. And the purpose of management system is to ensure effective protections of the nominated property of present and future generations. And heritage conservation plan is a practical administrative tool. I mean, it has to be legal, intended to safeguard the property of OUV significance, and so on. Yeah. So this is a kind of aspect of legal aspect of the HUL, the importance of that. Maybe you can reflect in all Thailand cities, for example, or in China, or in Malaysia, or in India. How many cities already have this mechanism? What is still missing? How can we improve that? So starting from this, actually, you can put up proposals or even studies and arguments that this should be changed, this should be added. Okay, so this is the I don't need to repeat this one. The plan is aims all of this, and you can refer to this later in your slides. There are several stages of implementation. Actually, this briefing slide is intended for the city officers, for the government officers or planning officers, so they understand, or the lawyers who want to make this a legal mechanism. Okay, so I give you another example. Before HUL is accepted by UN, by UNESCO, and introduced to all member states, the city of Kyoto actually has done this before. In the city of Kyoto, there are many UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And in order to manage that, they come out with this. This is the dossier, the submission dossier of Kyoto in UNESCO World Heritage. So you can download all the documents there, very complete. But the most important thing is to see the management plan. So you have all these maps there, but this publications done in 2007 is productions by local government, Kyoto government. The title is the Kyoto City Landscape Policy, and the intention is listed there as a forming timeless and radiant Kyoto landscapes. So the approach is really into the urban landscape before people start talking about HUL. Yeah, they are quite advanced in this because they realize, because they want to keep, there is a consensus in Kyoto to keep Kyoto as Kyoto forever. So that's why there is a slogan of these productions is so that Kyoto will always remain Kyoto for the next generation. So I think this is representing the spirit. You can download the set on the links. And this is part of the dossier submitted to UNESCO to list sites of Kyoto as a part of the management plan. And this can be a very good example. And the good example is, for example, I just take several pages, important pages here. The fundamental concepts that is not preserving or making Kyoto freeze or frozen for the next generations, but let Kyoto grow into an economically as a city. Therefore, you need a new urban planning and continuity of development. So you look into the first diagram on the top, the green one, new landscaping policy that suit the region characteristic. And then moving backward into the middle, there's 5 basic policy. First is landscaping that naturally conforms the scenery in the basin. So it's the natural, the cultural and natural context. 2, landscaping that coordinates harmony between succession of traditional culture and creation of new. Number 3, landscaping comprises of multi-use space that bespeak of features of Kyoto. We are talking about attribute. Number 4, landscaping that generate the city pulse. City pulse is the economic vibrancy and cultural vibrancy. Number 5, landscaping through partnerships among government and region and enterprises. And the aim is stated on the pink on the left, features of Kyoto landscape. So what is the significance of Kyoto? Kyoto 50 to 100 years later is a set of provisions, landscaping that will remain relevant as a historical city in the future. So it means this connection of the past to the future, the same. Building may be private property, but landscape is public assets. And this is a very strong argument. So we don't look into building per building, but consider the object as a landscape, a totality of landscape. I think this is very much rooted in Japanese culture, that building is part of the city. City is part of the cultural landscape. And this cultural landscape is one. You cannot subdivide it and take it piece by piece. So therefore, the approach is really, you can have a private home, you can have a private space, but the landscape where your space or your home is actually located is a public asset. So therefore, you cannot avoid your responsibility to maintain that as part of the common landscape. You cannot create obstructions. You can create something that is blocking the views, for example. So, and then they have this framework, very practical framework, translated into one, building height control. Number two, the design of the building is about typology. Number three, surrounding scenery and vista. It's about the view towards different directions, which is related also to building height. And then outdoor advertisement, because advertisement will influence the appearance of the building, can be blocked, can be changed, but you have to control the outdoor advertisement. Number five is to identify the historical street, the street that need to keep the identity of the place. And then the gray one is the most important, is the support system, where the money came from, where is the legal aspect. Okay, so they changed the map, not just the master plan of conservations, but also landscape regulation map at the present. Yeah, on the right side, for example, one example. And then you can see the height regulations map on the left is different from the right. So they change the regulations. After they do this mapping, after they understand there's a consensus, they change and edit and revise the existing height regulation map. The very high area with a very deep purple change into pink. So you can see a difference between the more greens, more than the left. And this is a very brave decision because you have to be legally binding. So everyone who owns the land, who owns the site, should follow these rules. You have to cut the building if it's too high. And then when you cut the building, you have to provide incentive. What is the incentive to replace the lost values? This is on the left is, for example, the maximum height that was lowered and so on. So you can see the pictures on the top, the high-rise building is cut. So you have to take these brave decisions. Your building is blocking the vista and it's not conform into this policy. Therefore, have to be cut. But because we cut that building, what is the compensation? The compensation, maybe you are given money by the state, or you can build elsewhere with a different height. So it's called a TDR, a transfer of development right, for example. There's a mechanism that's known in planning. And second pictures on the right is an illustration because they want to protect the views towards the hill when they burn fire with that letter, Chinese character, every year. So it should not be blocked. So if a building blocking that characters, then have to be cut. So the master plan have to be three-dimensional, not just two-dimensional drawings. Master plan should be presented in three-dimensional sections. So you know which building, which area need to be handled. Okay, so this is another example of how the rules regarding the streetscape, regarding the choice of building materials, regarding the signage, which one is allowable, which one is not allowable. So it's important to produce a manual like this that easy to be understood by everybody. Like the city of Vigan in Philippines, for example, produce a very good owner's manual. So everyone who live in the area of heritage city of Vigan received the booklet prepared by the mayor of the city, consisting of pages explaining about the significance and the process and understanding, but also the techniques. What can you do, what you cannot be done? If it's broken, how you fix it? It's about the technicalities, building material, constructions, details. It's complete in that book. And these productions can be helped and can be done by the university, by a research center, through research project. And this is one of the very important aspects in example of Kyoto, is a support system. Where's the money came from national government and from Kyoto city. On the right is also the money from the crowdfunding. It will be from citizen, for enterprise, from benefactors, and put together into the fund, Kyomachiya House Development Fund, for example, for conservations, for renovation aid. It has to be managed transparently, openly, so you can avoid corruptions. Then you have a very transparent assessment by the public. So the money is used publicly through democratic means to support the common policy. That's on the city level. I give you another example. This is a small town in Sumatra called Siak. They don't have this. They are the beginning, but they realize that actually the city has several potentials. But of course, the first idea of the government is to turn the city into a tourism center or tourism destinations. It's very easy to get money. But some young generations, young people, understand the danger of mass tourism and the significance of places. So they are not from the university, but they are graduate of university, master students from architecture, urban planning, cartography, and they work together and set up a Facebook group. They call Komunitas or Community Heritage Hero. And they're organizing popular activities. For example, like cycling, sketching, drawing, cooking class, to rally all this. So the team is only started by 6 people: archaeologists, planology, architecture, planology, and graphic designer. But they organize a very popular event that is followed by all walks of society. And then it's not just about cycling, but they do cultural mapping. So they introduce the significance of the city. So they use this crowd, the local people, to work for them, to collect data, and to put on the Google Maps. This one, data collection. So all these activities is just a pretext to collect data and also to make people fall in love again, understand again. It's a form of empowerment of the local people about the importance of the sites. And then they start to use these methods of mapping. And then the government took over this information and data and translated into the conservation plan. So this is an example that is initiated by the locals, initiated by students, and is able to create change. And exactly, it's very, very easy to do this in a smaller town, not in the very big city. For example, in Bangkok, maybe it's really impossible to do this, because it's so complex. But in a smaller town, it's still able to do this. I did also with friends in Rajamangala, in Songkhla, to do the simple cultural mapping in 2 weeks, and it's a joint program. So you can build in the cultural mapping into a modules, undergraduate program or master program with a very short visit, like 1 month program, do the mapping and so on, and then put up together a book. And it's academic exercise of a limited area of Songkhla, for example. We did also in Bangkok some years ago with Chulalongkorn University students, NUS and University of Malaya, and some international student in Ban Patom, Ring 3, right? So we can do it anywhere. We can do it in Chiang Mai. We can do it in different towns quite easily as part of the academic program. So it's worth of 4 modular credits or 3 modular credits. And as part of the summer school, it get part of the elective program. So there's many ways to do the cultural mapping. And this is one example that is initiated by one person. Su Myung-suk is a former journalist from Jeju Island. And she returned to his island and feel very sad because only a certain part of Jeju is become very popular because of the Korean drama. But the rest of the island actually is underdeveloped. There's a lot of potential. There's small villages that people live in poverty, that there's not enough flow of tourists. But they also don't want, say, like mass tourism thrive. So he started with this, working together with universities and with the local community to do the cultural mapping. And then they design trails and they connect the small trails into an island. Whole island. And this trail is a very good information package online, can be downloaded and so on. And it's managed to create activities, creating passport and so on. So it's become like, tourist destinations for everybody. So you don't need to depend on the mass tourism, but people from Seoul, even from different town or even different country come there for, say, I have 1 week or 3 days. So what can you do in 3 days? Oh, maybe you can explore in number one. Next time you come back again, take number 2. Next time, take number 3. So the key is really to have a package of informations that easily downloadable, freely downloadable, but you can create to spread the prosperity to local people. Yeah, because you channel this friendly guest coming into your island without, say, it's not just about taking selfie. It's not just for consumptions, but they also want to learn something about the local culture, want to stay longer and repeat. It's not just once, but twice, but 3 times. Next time they can bring their friends. So the island of Jeju become the ownership is not by the local people only, but by the entire people who understand, who has been there before. And the impact is the growth of economic growth, of fisheries, of farming, of local food productions, naturally from the bottom up, because you drive potentials visitors there. And I also encourage you to look into this I Discover Asia apps. And it's initiated by only one person, Esther van Skelenburg. He's a Dutch planner who based in Hong Kong, and he has his own design company, but he has also have this social enterprise, which is working together with local schools, with NGOs in different small towns to create apps. And this app is a short walking tour or bike tour that can be easily done in 1 day or even 2 or 3 hours. And they also print the maps, the physical map. And the physical map can be sponsored by the locals, say like Starbucks or hotels or even local government. And there's a gift for free in hotels, in tourist information center. At the same time, also, they have apps that is only 50 cents or free that can be downloadable. But the most important is the process, how to do the cultural mapping. So the principles of this creation of maps is created by locals, designed by locals, and empowered and powered by locals. So it's only the map itself is a catalyst. And the works of these organizations, I Discover Asia, is to enable this to happen. See, first, the key is to reveal the narratives. So the local community is the curator. In each city, we work with local NGO, university, community groups, and creative collectives. We spend few days together and tap into the vast knowledge of local culture and living heritage, and collectively, we define the spirit of place. Okay, because it's curated by locals and based on agreement. So which one you want to put on the map? Based on the agreement of the local community, you avoid conflicts. And then everybody can have different ideas. Okay, so I have a shop, I have a homestay here, I have a restaurant, and then there's a very nice place, very nice trail that only locals know. So they have put this together. And then find the stories of people and place. We wander the street, we listen to old shopkeepers, colorful characters, and creative entrepreneurs. Through them, we learn about the traditional trades, hidden secrets, and local legends that make each neighborhood so unique. This is branding. Branding is not top-down, but bottom-up branding. I think this is very important because only locals knows best, not outsider, right? And then craft walking and cycling itineraries, not cars. Why? Because you can slowly enjoy. Yeah, it's not just come and go, hit and run. Maps, words, and photos are combined into one handy apps. We think the best way to experience of a city walking through back alleys and cycling through little lineways. So we take great care of craft or perfect neighborhood itinerary. And you don't know. So you can see, you can try yourself, your map. I think they also do something in Thailand. It's a mix of I see, I eat, I sleep, I surprise, right? So there is a different pin that give different labels. And it's combined quite nicely. So you can use bicycle or walking in a very enjoyable manner. And this has been discussed and tested by the students and also tested with the locals. But the idea is really to spread the economic growth and economic opportunity to everyone in the neighborhood. So that neighborhood can grow together, the so-called the prosperity. And then at the same time also generating the pride of the local community to their own localities. So they want to preserve it. Why? Because this is their assets. So they don't see the home and the street as a problem anymore. They see it as an asset that they need to keep it well and clean and beautiful. And they're producing a lot of things, creative industry, because they see this opportunity is coming to them. Right? And then design a map, and the design of the map, they always use a local artist. And then number 5, we give back to the community. We put locals on a map and make them proud. We drive traffic to the traditional shops and small entrepreneurs for whom it is increasingly difficult to survive in the 21st century city. Every dollar spent in a local shop is a dollar well spent. Travel responsibly and shop locally. This is the key of responsible tourism. And number 6, this is the goal, is to celebrate living heritage. We bring the local community together through fun-filled events that celebrate the neighborhood spirit even better. And you can be part of it. So the students who are involved with the NGOs, with the local community, have a bond with them. And they can generate continuous activities on the ground. And that makes the so-called the heritage alive. And by this way, the heritage will remain alive until we pass it on to the next generations. And the way we pass it on into generation is through involving the young people, students, youth from the community to fall in love and to take care of their own heritage and work together to develop this innovative product. Okay, so I think this is just to end my talk today. The past is the heritage of today. And the today is the heritage of the future. And heritage of the future generations, not for present generations, and should not be consumed or messed up by the present generations. So therefore, if we are talking about conservation, it's a process of managing permanence and change. Okay, and then to do all of this, it has to be based on a methodology, based on the scientific steps that can be concluded as a very simple, so-called the word cultural mapping. Thank you.